Excuse me, could you point me in the direction of ScreamCity? Never mind, I think I found it.
Hello, horror freaks. Welcome back to Scream City. I'm your host, Monica.
And I'm Jessica, and today we will be discussing a pretty new movie called Knock at the Cabin.
But before we get into it, let's go ahead and get our peek and pit out of the way. So, Jess, what have been yours for the past week?
Pit? Can I say my life? I'm just kidding.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
No. Pit, I've just been feeling kind of like, you know what I mean? Peak, I was able to get my grade up for an exam after a meeting with my professor. So I thought that was really cool.
Hell yeah.
So that was pretty much me. What about you?
Okay. My pit is my life for sure.
Okay.
So if you're not going to say it, I will.
Right.
And then peak. Well, when you have your life as a pit, there's not a lot of peaks. So we'll just go with, I got to watch a new movie.
We love watching movies here.
I know what my new peak will be. I know what my peak will be for next week, but that's for the end of the episode.
Okay.
Got that out of the way.
Yeah. But finally getting into this movie, if you haven't had the chance to watch this movie, which don't blame you, it's pretty new. Just a heads up, there will be spoilers, so don't say we didn't warn you.
Yes.
But to give a quick synopsis, basically, there's a group of people, right? And they are trying to kind of save humanity, but by doing so, there needs to be a sacrifice. Mm-hmm. And that sacrifice has to be someone in your family. So this group of people, guess what? They knock at the cabin.
Okay, anyway.
They knock at the cabin. And they disrupt this beautiful family's, little vacation getaway. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of goes from there. And it's some pretty interesting events
I
happen.
will say, because I think the synopsis that Google gives, it's basically saying that there's a group of people who, come into this cabin, and then now they're holding hostages from whoever was staying at that cabin. So the synopsis and a little bit of the preview was giving home invasion. Okay. Which this is, but it's also not.
Right.
And I also feel like that's another reason why I feel like this movie didn't do as well as maybe I felt it was going to. Mm-hmm. Because when I saw the cast list, when I saw the preview for it initially, I also had pretty high expectations. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the movie, I still really like the movie, but I can see why people were disappointed. Right. Because it was giving strangers, yeah, but it was actually something completely different. Yes. So
we'll
take that with a grain of salt.
We'll do what?
Take it with a grain of salt. Just being
we'll definitely obviously explore that a little bit more into the movie. Into the episode, but yeah, it. I don't really know what I was expecting with what the trailer gave us. Yeah, but again, we'll kind of go into that.
I will say shout out to the trailer. I also only saw the trailer I think twice, and I saw it once in a movie theater, and then I think again when I was watching Hulu or something. Yes, because I still have advertisements on my Hulu. But anyway, I felt like the preview didn't give a lot away, which is I guess cool in this case at least. Right. So
I appreciate those trailers. Yeah. That don't give. I genuinely loved this trailer because it left you confused.
Yeah, it really did.
And I will have to say that unfortunately with a lot of recent horror films, especially for example, Halloween, Scream.
Yeah.
Why my thing? I want to
go above and beyond and show half the movie.
I wanted to tweet this, but I don't want to get canceled for this because I don't know how people are gonna think about this or what they're gonna think about this. Oops. But again, let's kind of go to the Scream 6 trailer. Mm-hmm. Why the hell did I see 2 or 3 deaths already?
Yep.
Okay, even if those deaths weren't in the trailer, yeah, and it would have been obvious that those people were going to die, those characters were going to die. Because you know how you can always sense, like, oh, they're going to die, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Like, then just let it be
let
obvious. But why show the death?
I don't think with horror movies you can, I don't know. I feel like it goes to show that it's just one of those things where it's like, maybe less is more, if that makes sense. And that's what's going to really, I think, do well for your movie. Maybe you keep people on their toes. So, but starting, kind of shying away from that now, what are your 3 for this movie? So your fave scene, kill, and then your first impression.
Okay, my favorite scene, the whole movie I thought was pretty good. Yeah. Personally. For some reason, I keep getting drawn back to the very first scene. Okay. When Wen is catching grasshoppers. Yeah. And I wasn't expecting for that group to show up immediately. Oh, right. At all. Like, I thought they weren't going to show up till, like, maybe the second part, or I don't know. Right. But just, I don't know. I think it's something about Dave Bautista. Yeah. Of him just, like, approaching this tiny creature. Yeah, immediately. You know what I mean? And, like, there is, like, in that scene, it's so funny because he puts his hand out to, like, shake her hand. Yeah. And her hand is so tiny compared to hers. Yeah. And it's like this, it just looks really funny. Yeah. But overall, I really liked that very first scene. I think it kind of shows, it kind of foreshadowed in a way what we should have been expecting. Which, is this innocence. But, there's, like, some sort of, I don't really want to say the word evil. Okay. But there's a sort of, like, eeriness approaching 100%. This innocence. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah. I think that's very fitting.
Yeah. So that was my favorite scene.
You like the beginning scene?
Yeah. First impression, I feel like I've already kind of talked about this, but first impression, I left the movie theater feeling not necessarily, like, confused. I just had no idea what to believe. You know what I mean? Right. To me, personally, I mean, I don't doubt it for a bunch of other people. I thought it was like a mind fuck. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. It left me unsettled.
Unsettled is a good one to do.
So I watched it with my sister, and afterwards we went to Best Buy for something, and I know this is bad, but as I was driving to Best Buy, I was just, like, sitting there driving, and I was like, what did I just watch? Yeah, you know what I mean? Sure.
I think that's something, I mean, that's kind of like the whole, that's sort of like the purpose that Night Shyamalan, I think, goes for. I think he's also known for plot twists, which I don't think this one had one. Right. There was one, but there wasn't. So I was still really confused because they don't really reveal it, or do they, technically?
I don't think they...
Because they don't show his face at the bar. Because I'm talking about Redman. But, like, it's also kind of obvious that it's him. Or no, it was revealed that it was him because... They'd also revealed that it was him because he gave Dave Bautista Leonard his ID. And he was like, see, I told you that wasn't his name. So it's very unfortunate. But I don't feel like it's a big enough plot twist to kind of differ from what their purpose was of why they were actually there. Yeah. So...
Yeah, overall, it just left me, like...
It's quite,
Again, we'll kind of get into this when we rate it, but no hate to it. No. I'm a huge M. Night fan. And
he's great.
I genuinely enjoy his stuff. I know people didn't really like this, but I enjoyed it. It left me unsettled and confused.
The last Night Shyamalan movie that I saw was Old. And I liked it, and I think that movie and the plot had really good potential. I just don't think it was executed well because of the cast. Correct. The cast seemed pretty inexperienced, which is never a bad thing. But I think when you're kind of working with someone as big as Night Shyamalan and kind of have this reputation of terror and, like, psychological, I think it was very fitting. I just don't think maybe he had the right team. Yeah, to kind of do that for him. But I mean, I'm not trying, and that's not me trying to knock him off, saying that, like, he's not doing well, and, like, from, like, the last movies that I've seen of his, but, like, that was just the last thing that I saw that he, like, created. So it's kind of good to see that, he made something else, and that I still feel really like, yep, that's Night Shyamalan. So
And
it's pretty cool.
he does James McAvoy. Why am I Split?
Split.
He does Split, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Split was fantastic. That's
Split,
a 10 out of 10
yeah.
for me. Okay, well, what's your favorite kill?
Favorite kill. Okay. So I have a very like satisfying kill, which personally was Adrian's. I thought that girl was annoying, y'all.
Just a bit.
I'm sorry.
Just a bit.
I'm sorry. And like same.
Yeah.
Same. I would probably be her in that situation, but I just
Right.
thought she was annoying. I thought hers was pretty satisfying.
Yeah.
But my favorite kill, which I don't know if I'm saying favorite just because it came as a shock factor to me, but I think it was Redmond's. Just because I wasn't expecting it to be so soon. I feel like everything was just very like not necessarily rushed,
Yeah.
but it just kind of came all at once.
Yeah.
Again, like
I think that was also within the first like 15 minutes of the
Right.
film, so
Going-
a lot happens.
And going back to my favorite scene, which was the beginning, again, I wasn't expecting
For
Dave
them to
Bautista to
just-
show up
right away.
all of a sudden, you
Yeah.
know? So Redmond's death to me was a shock factor. Definitely.
Okay.
Was definitely a shock. But I also liked, obviously we didn't see the actual, thing, but I kind of liked how gory it sounded and it felt.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like they cut off his head, but I think from what I saw in the last kill, it could just kind of sound like they're just beating into them.
Yeah.
And so, it was pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
Watching Rupert Grint act that scene out was pretty hard because he was I was telling Jessica before he started, like, he was giving face.
Mm-hmm.
He was giving terror, like, I'm so fucking scared, like, I don't want to
Yeah.
die. And I think that's always something very uncomfortable, obviously, to watch. Someone practically beg for their life, and then it's like, ooh. And so it was really like unsettling to watch for sure. I think it would have been a lot worse if they showed him, or if they showed how they killed him, but they didn't.
I obviously felt horrible.
Yeah.
I felt horrible. Like,
and then he was like, don't you dare look away. And I was like, I'm gonna look away.
I'm gonna look
close
away
my eyes.
personally.
Personally, I'm gonna close my eyes.
Yeah, yeah, and you're gonna be dead, so you can't really do anything about that.
Right.
It was a movie. What about you?
Well, so we ended up renting the movie because it was in theaters, and then we were going to go, but last minute I just got really tired, and I was like, no. So we rented the movie at home, which kind of benefited in our favor for this specific purpose. I'm not a fan of people who are on their phones during movies or talk during movies, so but I was able to think out loud with this movie because I watched it with Mateo, and so it helped a lot. And I just watched this movie last night, so my feelings and my thoughts on this movie are still really fresh.
Yes.
So it hasn't really sat with me for that long, but I think that's a good thing and a bad thing, right? So Mateo and I, like, we were going back and forth on what we thought was going on, and he guessed it pretty much right away, but that's because he's heard of it and I didn't. But he was like, this is sort of giving me like the apocalyptic Four Horsemen, and I was like, the fuck is that? And then he explained it to me, and I was like, oh. And he said what gave it away from him was because the Four Horsemen are supposed to have bizarre type of weapons, and that's kind of how they all had one. And so I was like, okay, that's pretty interesting. And then from there, like, it was just really cool to watch everything unravel. But I will say, I did predict the movie quite a bit. I did expect Eric to die, to be the one to be sacrificed.
Same.
And I feel like you kind of tell right away because both of their demeanors and both of their personalities are shown literally right away from the minute that they feel panic. Eric was definitely a lot more level-headed, a lot more logical, and so he seemed kind of the most to be like, hey, man, it's all right. I'll be the one.
Yeah.
Versus, like, Andrew, he was so...
And real quick, I kind of wanted to get into this a little bit after your kind of big three. Your big three. Right after your three, but now that we're kind of into it and we're talking about Eric and how he's the one who kind of fell for it, My question is, do you think you would be Eric or Andrew in this situation?
So it kind of sounds like you didn't believe
I
that
didn't.
they were. So you didn't believe about, like, that they were actually being truthful. You thought that they were like...
Well, correct. Yes, that was my original thought.
Okay. See,
Yes.
well, I thought the opposite. I thought that it was actually true. So this is, again, one of those things depending on, like, where you stand with the whole... Because there are actual, like, people who study these things and, like, go into... What is it called? Conspiracies of, like, the apocalyptic, like, 4 horsemen and stuff. Like, it's, like, a real thing. And so... it was really interesting to watch for me, who's never heard of this. And I kept asking Mateo, because I was like, well, what do you think? Like, what would you do? And then he's like, I don't know. He's like, and it was so funny because when we were going back and forth, there's 4 of them. Yes. I would let one of them die, and then I'd be like, show me proof. And that's basically kind of what they did, right? Yeah. And then they were like, yeah, well, here's the proof. And they turned on the TV. But then obviously Andrew was like, this shit is like recorded 4 hours earlier. And so like, he kind of thinks of like all of the scenarios ahead of time. So by the end of it, I was still very like, I would believe them, but I would still be so stuck on being like, I can't tell if you're being truthful or not. But then like at the end, you see that there's like airplanes flying out, and like not just on the TV, like they see it in the sky, like in person. So that's like another reason why I'd be like, I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to believe and to be a believer of something that you don't know anything about.
And we'll obviously get into this during our Would You Rather? Yeah. So I guess let's keep our thoughts a little
okay. Well, anyway, so
that
away. Was my first impression of this movie was that it was really good. I liked it overall. I think it gave what needed to be Gavin. You understand? But I can still see how people were disappointed. So that's like the best way that I can put it. Okay. Now, my favorite scene. So mine was more of a shot, and that was when Leonard took a swing at Redmond and how the camera went vertical and then it swung down with him. I thought that was so beautiful and like so wonderfully shot. But I also love overall, like, I couldn't choose like a favorite scene per se because I was honestly just so sort of in awe with the cinematography itself. I don't know what cameraman he was working with, but that cameraman's rent was due. It was due 3 months ago, and he needed to catch up on some payments because I think the cinematography for this movie was so beautiful. While I was watching this movie, I actually like was writing down my thoughts, and the very first thing that I wrote is that I like the cinematography during the scene. The very opening scene where Wen and Leonard are talking while they're sitting in the grass. And so he's like, I'll sit with you and I'll collect them with you. Because if you kind of notice that each time that she's talking and then it goes back to him talking and like the shots just go back and forth and he keeps looking behind him to see when his group is going to show up, it zooms in little by little. Yes. So then it gets extremely close and it gets extremely personal and it gets extremely more uncomfortable. Yes. And then when he looks out into like the woods, like to see if he's coming, I don't know if you can really tell, but like the shot is like zooming in and out, so it looks kind of 3-dimensional in a way, I guess, or like 2-dimensional, but it looks really weird. Yes, I totally forgot. I did watch this maybe opening week, I don't remember, but I remember that scene, that shot where it kept getting so closer nice. And then closer. They don't just do it with like that scene. They also do it whenever Adrian is also like feeding Wen. They just, the shot that they show of Adrian like pushing the plate towards Wen, like it's just her face. And I think that's what a lot of the shots are in this movie, is a lot of up close and personal shots just to kind of really seem invasive. And that's kind of what the whole, I would say, like theme of the movie is. It's just like, you know, coming into play. But it's a very eerie and wary like feeling. So I think overall mine's more of just like, I really favor the cinematography for this movie, and it felt really cool to kind of watch that. So now for kill, I will say the kills were all pretty much similar in a way because they all unfortunately died, and they all kind of died the same way. So I feel like I didn't get a really good pool of different types of deaths to choose from. But if I did have to choose, I think I would have to go with Eric's. And Eric's, I'm choosing that one mostly because of the feeling and not because of obviously the actual death, because he just gets shot. Right. But the thing is, we don't see if he shoots himself or if he makes Andrew shoot him, because I think they're both holding the gun. But either way, I felt really like I felt really sad.
Yeah.
And like, and that's the thing, I predicted it because I was like, he's gonna have to be the one to sacrifice. I was like, they're obviously not gonna sacrifice when, like, or I was like, if they do, then I would be like, oh shit. But I don't know. It was just so sad. And then I was like, oh my god. I wrote, I think in my notes, like, I said, I was like, the ending of this movie is a sappy love story, but I loved it because it was just so like, because you get flashbacks of like what their relationship was like, and it was really sad to kind of witness and see, and you can definitely feel why Andrew is so angry, and why he feels targeted, and why like he has every right to feel that way. But I think because he was so focused with that rage, Eric was like in a completely different mindset, but he didn't want to not discourage, but
belittle,
sort of like, I don't want you to feel belittled, but just because I'm not thinking the same way you're thinking right now in a minute of like panic, if that makes sense. So I don't know. It was really hard. I feel like maybe I looked into this movie way too much, but I feel like that's what Night Shyamalan does to me. Yeah. So I can't help 100%. It. But I don't know. I really went with Eric's death just because of the feelings that it gave me afterwards, because I was still very like, oh my god. Yeah. Like, he's still willing to say. Because then I think what made me feel even worse about it was because he was like, please do it right now while I'm thinking of such a beautiful picture for like when and like this and that. And I was like, why? Why
would you do that to me?
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So those are my big three.
Your big three.
So I don't know, but
yeah, this movie had a cast.
I loved the cast in this movie.
Me too.
I loved every single person.
Me too. It had a great cast. Obviously, starting off with Dave Bautista.
I love him.
I love you.
He's so great.
Jonathan Groff.
Love.
I love you. Frozen.
Okay. Frozen.
And he was also on, actually, there's what is it, like a criminal sort of, it's Mindhunter.
Oh, Mindhunter, yes. That Mateo was also talking about how it was funny because in Mindhunter he plays, I think, someone who studies the psychological meanings of like different things, and then it's funny because he says that out loud as one of his lines, like in the movie, of like, this is real, like people, I don't know, he mentioned something, he's like, that's really funny that they connected the two. So I was like, yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah,
so yes, but he's great. I love him so much. Yes.
We've got Ben Aldridge, which this man, attractive.
Yeah.
So attractive.
Andrew, right?
Andrew,
yes, he is. He's a good man to look at.
Yes, very.
And I loved it.
And I think he's Australian. I don't remember. Yeah.
I can never tell when I always get excited when I hear actors that I've seen for the first time on screen have like accents in like interviews, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Like, oh, you trainer.
Go you. Because you do that American accent too well.
And then, of course, Mr. Ron Weasley himself.
It's so funny. In my notes, in all of my notes, I didn't refer to him as Rupert at all. I'm the type of person, awful type of like fan, to just minimize him to his one role as Ron Weasley.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And then Nikki Amuka Bird. She was Sabrina. Yes.
I like her. I've seen her in other stuff.
I have.
For sure.
Too.
For sure.
Yes.
And I think I've seen her in other horror movies too.
Yes.
I think.
Abby Quinn. Love you, girl. Hated the character.
Adrian. Yeah. Yeah, she's cool.
Yeah. And then Kristen Cui. She's Wen.
Wen, I mean, she is so little.
She is so
and
little.
I don't know if it's because of like how I don't know what it is, but that girl is so well spoken. Like the entire movie she was speaking like if she was like 12, 13 years old, and she was like 6.
Yeah.
So
I know.
Good.
And it also made me think, like, obviously I feel like, I don't know, I'm sure most people do this, but when you're watching a movie and there's a different age range throughout the movie, Huge. We've got 6 and then up to,
I mean, I feel like in this movie you really just have like a child and you have adults. Like I feel like that's just really what it is. But I mean, if you're talking about like Well, no, because I feel like they're kind of all in the same age pool, except for maybe Leonard and Sabrina. I feel like they were kind of maybe closer to age versus.
I feel like Adrian was a little younger than maybe everyone.
Yeah.
That's what I
think when she said she was like 22, 23. I don't
like that.
remember.
But anyway, it made me think. I was like, I would not be that smart.
Oh, 100% not.
At all.
No.
In that situation, like
no.
when
she has to work with a bunch of adults.
Yeah.
That's pretty intimidating.
It is.
And in like a horror terror type of setting too. So shout out to her.
And then McKenna Kerrigan, I believe she played Andrew's mom. She sounds and looks so familiar, but I think I'm getting her confused with I forgot the actress's name, but she's on The Walking Dead. If you know, you know. But yeah. But anyway, again, loaded with a great cast. And
I love I think they're all really experienced and they're all really well, even if Wen isn't. I don't know if this is like her first movie or not. I don't know if she's been in other things that we know of. But she I think she did amazing for a 6-year-old.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like we don't get a lot of like child actors that start off one so young and do so well.
Yeah.
So I loved everyone who was in this movie. They all gave face.
They all did.
They all slayed.
They all sure did.
They all slayed amazingly.
Until they did not.
Until they didn't.
Yeah.
Until it was curtains closed for them.
Yes.
But I think they all did really great.
Yeah.
And I loved it all.
I was very hopeful when I watched the trailer for the first time because I was very excited to see obviously
Everyone.
Dave, Rupert, Jonathan. But y'all, I left the theater in love with Mr. Aldridge.
He was very handsome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, but he slayed that acting.
He did. He like you can tell that he like if you've never felt frustration and if you've never felt anger and if you've also never felt like panic all in one setting, he did exactly that for this entire film.
Yeah.
But that's like I think that's kind of what we were kind of mentioning earlier is that this movie starts off so quickly and so right away that like they kind of have to not build their character, but they have to give you their background story during all of their like traumatic events. And even in those flashbacks, you can tell the type of personality that Andrew has because of how great he like portrays him.
Yeah.
And like how well he
and actually I do apologize for being incorrect. He's not Australian.
He's not.
He is English. But let me tell you why I thought he was Australian, because for some reason I think of mustaches and I think of Australian. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So anyway, he is English.
No wonder you like him so much.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, so moving on a little bit, we can see what the internet has for some facts, and we can see how untrue or how true we feel they are.
Okay, so knowing me, I'm very gullible, so I'm always going to believe that they're true.
Right.
Unless, I don't know. But anyway, we're taking these off of IMDb. So personally, I think they're true because I feel like IMDb, Jesus Christ, I'm dyslexic.
I was like, it's okay, take a minute. Take a minute.
But yeah, I think they are a reliable source, maybe, ?
For the most part, because I feel like they're dedicated to like media and I don't know. Whatever.
Anyway, first one we've got on here is M. Night cast David, who the fuck is David? Dave Bautista, after he was impressed by his performance in Blade Runner 2049.
I mean, he did do pretty well in that movie. I don't know if you've seen it, but he did do pretty well. So I too would be impressed. But Dave Bautista has been in quite a bit of movies and quite a bit of things. So I can see that. I don't know if you noticed. This is not even like this is a fact. But I don't know for whoever doesn't really know. But I don't know if you saw Night Shyamalan in his movie, and it's like the funniest thing because like I love being able to point it out.
I love cameos.
It's like the coolest thing ever, and I love pointing them out too because
it's like
these are because these are the people that are supposed to be like behind the scenes, but they're like no.
Like
I'm gonna
Stephen King with It.
Night Shyamalan is also he's also in a lot of his own movies.
He sure does.
Quentin Tarantino does the same thing too, but I think he was a actor for a while before he became like a full-time director. But he's in quite a bit of his movies too. And like I'm trying to think of someone else who does a lot of cameos. Oh, fucking Marvel, Stan Lee. He was in a lot of his, like, he made a lot of cameos in his movies too. So I just think it's really cool to kind of note and point out, and just kind of see. And so I just thought it was really funny to point out him in this one because he was in a cooking show.
Yes,
that was really funny.
I loved it. I feel like I do believe. Again, I'm gonna believe all of them, but this movie was based on the 2018 novel "The Cabin at the End of the World" by Paul Tremblay.
Interesting. I can't say whether it's true or not. I've never read it.
Yeah, I've never read it. I'm gonna be honest with you, never even heard of it.
No, me either. Me either. But I mean, there's a lot of movies that get based off of like books or different anything. I'll say it's true.
Okay.
I'll say it's true for the sake of being like, I wanted to dedicate something to this book that meant so much to me. I don't know. It says that at the very end of the credits, you can hear the knocking at the cabin. I didn't continue the movie long enough to see if that was a thing.
I think my sister and I stayed at the movie theater just because we were, I don't know what we were doing. But, like, in the actual theater. I don't remember. I don't remember.
I didn't keep the movie going on long enough.
Yeah.
I kind of cut it off after the credits.
Unless it was very faint or I'm just tripping. I don't remember that part. But
Interesting. So before that we end the episode, I think it's a good time for us to do a little Would You Rather? Yeah. So we were thinking to go a little basic for this episode, but I think it fits the theme just as good. So, for this movie, would you rather save your family or save humanity before knowing that all of this was real? So, I feel like being in the same scenario, people invade your home, telling you that they're the four horsemen of the apocalypse, they're trying to prevent it, and they really do strongly believe to where they're willing or they're needing to sacrifice themselves if you can't sacrifice someone in order to save humanity.
Right.
See, my initial thought was like, I'm saving myself, and I'm saving my family. And we're going to go through the apocalypse together, if it really is true. And then, the more the movie got further in, and I was like, there are a lot of people in this world that don't deserve that, though. I was like, I really want to be the person that's selfish and want to save my family. I was like, but if it comes to the point, I'll be willing. Because...
So you would be willing to sacrifice yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if your family was like, okay, guys, we obviously need to make a choice. Who are we sacrificing in order to save humanity?
Hands up.
Hands up.
Okay. Hands up. Raise my hand. Yeah. And then let's say that these people never believed in the apocalypse and they just wanted to be crazy and they just had me sacrifice myself. It's a win-win.
Okay.
Because I either live to see an apocalypse or I live to live the life I do now. And to be fair...
Okay.
It's a win-win.
All right.
You know what I mean? No, in all reality, I think it would be a really hard decision.
It is.
What if we were the four horsemen?
Girl.
We just, like, invade someone's home and, like, had all these visions and we all came together.
I kid you not. If we were to invade someone's home and say that shit, they would be like, get the fuck out of my house. And guess what? We'd be out.
Yep. And we'd
be out. Like, sorry.
And then we would be so scared for the world because we wouldn't be able to do what we wanted to do.
Yeah. I was thinking about this while watching the movie. I find it hard to make the choice.
Okay.
I do. And it's obviously hard. And I know, like half of me is like, it's just fantasy.
Right.
But we're doing a little would you
rather?
Yeah.
So we kind of have to.
So we have to be.
We have to be in the mindset.
Be in the mindset.
Right.
So throughout the movie, so I guess this is what I'm going to stick with. Throughout the movie, I was thinking, save my family.
Save your family.
Yeah.
See, that was my initial thought, like at the beginning of the movie. And see, the other thing is also when the way it opens up, I'm still thinking that it's like a home invasion type of movie, you know? And it's funny how you were making fun of how like people would be like, get the hell out of my house.
Yeah.
Because my initial thought obviously was also that they were going to invade these people's homes, you know, or this person's like, you know, little cabin. And I was confused because their weapons seemed like they knew how to use them. But then the minute when it came to Andrew trying to fight off these people, Ron Weasley was getting his shit rocked.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the funniest shit ever because I was like, aren't y'all invading
Yes.
these people's homes? But that was before they revealed that they were like, you know, we don't want to hurt you.
Well, but also, we have to remember that Andrew is a victim of Redmond.
Yeah.
And we see a sneak peek or a preview of him, you know.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking like that's later in the movie. Like, we
Yeah.
don't get a preview of him actually being able to stand up for himself. But my thing is, like, if you're going to invade people's homes, like, you would assume that these people know how to use their weapons.
Right.
They know how to fight. They know how to, like, you know, take people hostage. But they obviously didn't get that far because they're saying, like, later, you know, they say, like, our visions brought us here. We didn't know that you guys would be here. And I think it's not funny, but, like, I just think
comical.
It was a really comical thing to kind of see whenever Gwen revealed to Leonard at the very beginning where she was like, I have two daddies, and he was like, oh fuck, they're gonna think that they're gonna think we're homophobic.
Yeah.
And that's not the case. We just want to prevent an apocalypse. And then it like becomes this entire thing later. But I will say that scene where they forced Leonard into the bathroom with a gun, and then that he was just kind of there. It was just so funny and really sad to see, and like that's why I felt for him, because I was like, if he truly does believe in this, and he really does think that, you know, and let's say this whole thing is real, like, he really doesn't want to hurt them. I was like, and Dave Bautista over here, a hard-ass, buff-looking dude, just being like, okay, I'm sorry.
You know what the plot twist was for me? Mm-hmm. That they actually didn't have ill intentions.
That's the thing.
You know, that was so...
And
like,
I think that's what people didn't like. And I feel like that's why people were like, oh.
Like, oh, they're actually nice?
Yeah.
They're
and
just
it
cuckoo?
wasn't, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think...
And if you think about it, are they actually cuckoo?
And that's the thing. You know, because I think at the end of the movie it shows you that they're not just cuckoo because they saved the world or whatever. But I don't know. It's hard. I have major trust issues, so if you put me in a scenario like that, I don't know how I'm going to react.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Anyway, so long story short, I would save my family.
Your family.
You
I would sacrifice myself.
You would sacrifice
to
yourself.
save humanity.
So therefore, you would save humanity.
I would save humanity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So humanity's doomed in your hands,
yes,
but not in mine.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go ahead and move this episode a little forward. So we're going to go ahead and rate this movie. So this movie is a horror movie. That is what the genre is. I think is more of a terror, psychological type of horror, not like possession, scary type of like horror. But because of that, we will be rating this movie with our two scales, our satisfactory scale and our scary scale. Just because a horror movie is good doesn't always mean that it's good, and vice versa. So what do you rate this movie?
Okay, so y'all know me at this point.
Okay.
Y'all know that I am generally a very anti-psychological thriller movie person.
Right.
Therefore, this movie did make me feel things that I don't really like to feel.
Yeah.
So, and that those things scare me. So to me, my scary scale is a little bit higher because of this. I did give it an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
Just because, again, made me feel unsettled and anxious.
Yeah.
No big jump scares.
Right.
But it reminds me of the Strangers movie.
Yeah.
And its infamous creepy ass line, because you were home.
I love that. I'm genuinely going to get that tattooed on my forehead.
On your forehead?
On my forehead. It's amazing.
Yeah.
The Strangers is to this day one of the horror movies that I still find terrifying and scary. It's one of those.
And to me, it's my biggest fear is always like humans harming humans.
Yeah.
You know, and there's this quote that I love, and if you follow me on Twitter, you've probably seen it, but it says, "I'm not afraid of werewolves or vampires or haunted houses. I'm afraid of what real human beings do to other human beings." By Walter John Williams. Because it's true, just like the Strangers, any home invasion, any psychological thing, to me, is real.
Yeah.
And it can happen.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm terrified of.
100%.
So that's why I gave it an 8 out of 10.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good one.
Satisfactory. 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
Again, good movie. No hate towards it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I don't think it was rushed, but I do think everything just kind of came like
fast paced.
Yeah, it was fast paced. Which, like, thank you, because I cannot, for the life of me, keep up with very slow paced movies. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think it's my ADHD or something. But
right.
Yes, I appreciate that. Yeah, half of me was like, I wish we had a little bit more context, but I think there was enough context to obviously, like, understand what was going on.
Understand what was going on, but I also feel like it was one of those that's like you interpret it how you maybe want to, but at the end it gives you a dead kind of giveaway, like they were being truthful of what their intentions were.
And obviously this is just me, but I think it would have been cool to maybe see maybe how the 4 people came about to be together. You know what I mean? And what's their story when it comes to, you know, being in the situation.
They saw and how their visions, like, because they tell us how they got together, and they tell us, like, a little bit of their backstories because they feel like they have to, and they want to be as helpful as they can as a scary situation kind of brings them into, but, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, what about you?
My scary scale is more of like a 6 out of 10 because the thought of something like this happening in real life is definitely scary, especially if I were to put myself in the same scenario, because you're telling me to choose between my family or save the entire world, and that's terrifying to think about. It's obviously really scary. But the movie itself didn't scare me. Like, the thought and the idea, definitely a scary thought. But the movie itself didn't give me that je ne sais quoi that horror movies normally give me, right?
Yeah.
So mine's more of a 6 out of 10. Satisfactory, mine's also an 8 out of 10. I can see why people weren't a fan of this movie. It was definitely, preview was giving something else, and then we got something else as a result. But overall, I thought it was a really good movie. I really love the cast. I think everyone did really well with it. I love the cinematography in this movie. I think it's beautiful. I would definitely recommend for people to watch this movie if you want to get into, like, psychological type of thriller horror, because I think this is a good one to start off with and make you really think if you don't want to go something too deep yet, you know, kind of work your way up. Yep. This one's a really good one. So, yeah. All right, then. Well, I think that concludes our Knock at the Cabin episode. It looks like we're nearing the end, but as always, this was a blast to record. It was really fun to watch.
Yeah.
But thank you again, of course, to everyone tuning in and listening. We truly appreciate you all, and if you want to keep up with us, we will have all of our social medias linked in the summary of the description.
And I know we say this all the time, but we sincerely do appreciate all of y'all for listening and for supporting us.
With that being said, if you did like today's episode, please tune in to next week's episode where we talk about another new movie.
Okay.
We've all been waiting. No, I'm just kidding. Just drag it out. Where we talk about Scream 6. And I am very, very excited. I'm going to wear all my ghost face merch. Yeah, I'm a Gwitty into the theater.
Oh my god. He literally hitting the Gwitty in the grocery store.
He literally Gwitty into grocery store. No, I'm really excited for Scream 6. The preview, I'll be honest, I've tried really hard to not watch it, so I've only really seen the convenience store scene where he walks in and starts fucking shooting everyone. Which, so that's as far as I've watched.
And let me say this. I think it's time we start giving Slasher some handguns.
I think,
like,
to be fair, well, I don't know. He's not the one that shoots, though. It's a convenience.
No, he ends up shooting.
Oh, he does end up shooting
the clerk,
like
yeah. But also, I think Art uses a gun at one point too.
I will say it triggered me a little. That scene triggered me a little, just a bit. But I think what makes slashers good slashers is because they use slashing weapons. So it's a good one. But I'm excited. I tried not to watch the entirety of the preview to this movie, so I'm just gonna go into this movie and just enjoy it.
That's the best way.
I'm not gonna have expectations because Halloween let me down pretty heavily. And I think the setting and location for this one is also really exciting because they're going a little bit more, I think, modern with it. And I think that's pretty fitting.
And New York is already chaotic enough.
Yeah, so why not add a little bit more?
Add a little slasher there.
Add a little bit of a ghost face.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of the slashers, the typical slashers that we get, they take in like suburby type areas. They take place in like places where, you know, you expect nothing bad to happen. But, you know, New York is New York.
Yeah.
So
New York is a horror film itself.
Exactly. So why not just kind of blend the two together?
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to watch this one.
Me too.
But anyway, enough of that. Yeah, just thank you guys again, and we'll talk to you next week. And as always, we've been your hosts, Monica
and Jessica.
Stay safe
and stay spooky.
Oof, that was scary. I can't wait to come back next week.